Friends, what was anticipated and scheduled for yesterday has indeed come to pass in the Verkhovna Rada today. The events unfolded precisely as planned, marking a significant development that many expected to happen. The people's deputies cast their votes, and it was an overwhelming number, a constitutional majority no less, to dismiss two ministers, Halushchenko and Hrynchuk, specifically the Minister of Justice and the Minister of Energy. They were removed from their positions in the wake of a significant corruption scandal, which is widely referred to as Mindyč Gate, or alternatively the Mindyč tapes, depending on your preferred terminology. And so, what subsequently transpired? Following the conclusion of the session, the people's deputies promptly began drafting their posts for their respective Telegram channels. It swiftly became apparent that the prevailing idea, which had been circulating, suggesting that the removal of Hrynchuk and Halushchenko alone might prove insufficient and that a more comprehensive reformatting could be required, was gaining traction. Not just the cabinet of ministers, it needs to be sent into resignation to reformat the majority within the Verkhovna Rada, establish a coalition, elect a new prime minister, and so on and so forth. Thus, to initiate the entire legal process from the beginning. You are free to name this new arrangement a government of national unity, a government of national stability, or even a coalition of salvation, whatever designation you prefer. And there should be absolutely no room for doubt whatsoever in your minds. These ideas are now being voiced not only by opposition factions such as European Solidarity or Batkivshkina, but quite surprisingly, they're even originating from within the Servant of the People faction itself. Look, People's Deputy Poturayev penned a rather extensive post outlining a step-by-step approach to rectify the nation's current predicament, which has arisen from the anti-corruption probes conducted by NABU and SAPs. So first, there should be no untouchables, that much is clear. Next, full support for NABU and SAP, no need to go deep. Point 3, a national unity coalition, that's quite interesting, right? To rebuild the trust of Ukrainian citizens and international partners in the government, we urgently advocate for negotiations among all pro-Ukrainian factions and groups within the Verkhovna Rada, aiming to establish a coalition for national stability. We earnestly call upon all parliamentary pro-Ukrainian forces to set aside their narrow party and individual priorities, which might impede such a crucial union. And fourth, what's needed is a government of national stability, entirely free from party quotas or backroom deals. After the formation of a national stability coalition, negotiations must begin with all participating factions and groups concerning the establishment of a government of national stability, and so on and so forth. Right now, it's rotten tomatoes and stale eggs. Every conceivable criticism and blame was directed at Poturayev. The faction leader, Arahamia himself, even weighed in on this whole affair, clarifying that it was merely Poturayev's personal opinion and the private thoughts of certain individual deputies, but by no means did it reflect the official stance of the entire faction. Yet, for reasons I can't quite grasp, I get the strong impression that all of this is happening considerably behind schedule now. Why? Because they have essentially figured out this whole plan. It is likely not just a coincidence that Poturayev is coming forward with this kind of communication. And this is but a small part of a much grander scheme, as Mariana Bezuhla describes it. To keep the head of the president's office in his post. The head of the president's office, thus Mariana Bezuhla, much like Sherlock Holmes, is presenting this to us. Thus, she is indeed proposing this particular sequence of events, this specific conspiracy theory. Well, the resignation of the cabinet, which is being pushed for by European Solidarity and Batkivshkina, and now even a portion of the Servant of the People faction, I might add, is an attempt by Andriy Yermak to secure his position, specifically through certain agreements he has within the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. The initial essential step is the resignation of the president's office head. Subsequently, the political landscape will be altered profoundly, allowing for the strategic planning of numerous crucial measures, particularly those concerning the cabinet of ministers. And Bezuhla also accuses, well, you might have noticed she's also involved in this conspiracy. She also personally targeted People's Deputy Honcharenko. Today, she ran up to his TikTok phones, took a picture, posted it on her Telegram channel, and wrote, either seriously or jokingly, that Honcharenko had set up his TikTok machines next to her. And while he was just strolling around near the rostrum, she went on air asking his subscribers if they knew why he wasn't writing about Yermak. Well, it's quite evident, isn't it? According to Bezuhla, European Solidarity, in conjunction with a segment of the Servant of the People Party and Batkivshchina, chose to assist Andriy Yermak in retaining his position amid the Mindyč Gate corruption scandal. In exchange, they apparently agreed to make a substantial concession to destabilize the situation concerning the cabinet of ministers and this entire narrative surrounding a new coalition, among other things. Most notably, another rather prominent and I would say influential people's deputy and spokesperson from the Servant of the People faction, Mr. Fedir Venislavsky, appeared on Radio Svoboda just recently to also articulate the necessity of Yermak's resignation. And I want to emphasize here that this feels like some kind of reverse track. So, Venislavsky asserts that a resignation would effectively dispel the negative sentiment currently surrounding the government. So, Venislavsky articulates that perhaps Yermak needs to be replaced while the government itself should be retained. His exact words are, "I am of the opinion that Mr. Yermak stepping down in this instance would undeniably quell this specific fervor encircling the government. Wouldn't you concur? Because it's widely known that the government was constituted, well, generally subsequent to specific candidacies being sanctioned by the president's office." That's what Venislavsky suggests. That's his opinion regarding a change within the government itself. This possibility is also not ruled out by People's Deputy Zhelezniak from the Holos party. The only difference is that he presents this whole situation in a completely different light. He frames it in such a way that the probability of a resignation exists because of certain procedural violations that the Ukrainian Prime Minister, Yulia Sviridenko, permitted. For example, not submitting the government's program which was supposed to be submitted. Therefore, even the existing formal grounds could potentially lead to a change in government, particularly if this situation genuinely creates such profound instability. And now let's talk about Yermak himself and the emerging circumstances that are rapidly developing concerning this entire Mindyč Gate situation. Suspilne truly astonished everyone with a rather intriguing piece of news that seemed more like a veiled suggestion. Thus, they cite Magomed Rasulov, a detective from NABU, who asserts that he assisted in deploying equipment to record individuals involved in energy sector corruption schemes. He stated that the suspects employed conspiratorial tactics, making the investigation quite challenging. NABU investigated alleged back-office operations within state firms like Ukrenergo and the Ministry of Defense. And there's a quote stating, Mindyč served as a mid-level manager within oligarch Kolomoyskyi's team. He's just the top manager. There are also beneficiaries without whose political will these processes could not have been realized. And now a lot of talk has started about, well, who's the main person in charge then? Who? AB, or perhaps Alibaba? And why indeed is all this talk about needing to remove Yermak escalating so much at this very moment? And simultaneously, some exceedingly intriguing developments are surfacing. Publications in reputable Western, highly respected publications, Politico, for instance, reports that right now, there's just immense pressure being exerted on Volodymyr Zelensky, and it's quite evident that Yermak is the undeniable cause of it. Here's a quote. Due to a corruption scandal that risks escalating into the biggest domestic political crisis since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion, Zelensky is under intense pressure to fire his influential chief of staff, Andriy Yermak. One of the deputies confirmed to Politico that there is dissatisfaction even within the Servant of the People party, especially after NABU released audio recordings of suspects discussing possible corruption schemes. The NABU recordings are the cause. Everyone knows they point to him, to his role in the July crisis over NABU's independence. Should this information be made public, it would adversely affect all members of the Servant of the People party, the source noted. And then, whether it will truly impact them or not remains quite uncertain at this moment. Tomorrow, Thursday, a significant meeting between the president and the faction is scheduled to take place where Andriy Yermak will probably also be in attendance. Well, we shall soon see what conclusions are drawn and what personnel decisions might ultimately be made. What's also quite fascinating is that today the NABU agency publicly disclosed some of the official papers linked to the charges against Mindyč. You can also find these screenshots, perhaps you have seen them already. So, forming a criminal group, influencing two ministries, money laundering. And the most fascinating part is this specific passage, which clearly demonstrates that Mr. Umerov, the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, who is currently alongside the president in Ankara, is indeed emerging as a key figure in this situation, is meeting with Erdogan there. Before that, he was in the United States in Miami meeting with Vitkov, right? He'd already commented on the situation, stating his readiness to cooperate with the investigation. However, he claimed to know nothing and had only met Timur Mindyč once regarding those specific body armors. Although it seems unrelated, the NABU has released a rather intriguing dialogue presented in italics, allegedly between Timur Mindyč and R.E. Umerov. This revealing conversation suggests a connection deeper than what was initially apparent. So there isn't even a code name here, right? This isn't the government anymore, I remind you, but it's the presidential team, right? I beg you, please don't quit, but those bulletproof vests involve a lot of money. Just have them sign off on the acceptance, that's all. It's just one simple call for you, just say the word. I don't want to hear about body armor from Timur anymore. Right, now for the continuation of the message, and I was meeting with him 2 times per week. But it's just one directive from your team, and that's all there is to it. Please resolve this issue, I'm begging you, or else, well, things will indeed go quite badly. 7 or 630 million has been invested, and half of that money is mine. This is clearly Mindyč speaking. And what follows? It says, under these same circumstances, Umerov RE informed his interlocutor of the following: I heard you, I'll call them again and say, look, what do you need from me to get this done? And to be fair, NABU also noted that as of August 20th, the goods had not been supplied. Thus, on August 29th, 25, Melecon UA was informed about the contract's termination, so it truly is that. Mindyč definitely didn't earn that money, yet Umerov's involvement, judging by this document and publication from the anti-corruption authorities, is clearly apparent and absolutely demands further investigation and clarification at this moment. What's more, things get even more compelling now. Precisely against the current backdrop of a new coalition government, a significant reshuffling of the majority, and as a direct consequence, the president's office completely losing its influence over the Verkhovna Rada. Furthermore, if a new majority takes shape, a new government will undoubtedly be established, one that will stand in direct political opposition to the president's office. We are currently witnessing this scandal extend its influence into the crucial area of defense procurement and the overall defense sector. It's rather interesting that the NV publication mentioned that the NABU is presently ceasing the publication of the other documents pertaining to these recorded tapes, predominantly because of the current state of martial law. And now I'm left with a question. Is this indeed some sort of political decision or an actual pressing necessity? Why, especially considering the current state of martial law, should this be happening? So up until this point, was everything being published with such freedom?